Now on to types of aggression. So we've gone over a few of these with a couple of the typologies, but we're going to go more into depth now. So the first is physical aggression, which is pretty self-explanatory. Sorry, my pictures are showing up a little later. So we've got punching, pushing, kicking, any kind of physical act that is aggressive. Then we have relational aggression, which is oftentimes having to do with damaging some kind of relationship or damaging the person's feelings, things like that. So this could be gossiping, rumors, the silent treatment, things like that. And as the pictures indicate, boys past early childhood, boys are more likely to do physical aggression and girls are more likely to do a relational aggression. Next, we're going to look at reactive versus proactive aggression. So, reactive aggression is pretty much what it sounds like. You're reacting to something. Key here is that it's in response to a perceived threat. So the perceived is important. So it might not actually be real, but it's what the person thinks is going on, what they're perceiving from their environment. So a hostile act displayed in response to a perceived threat or provocation. We're not able to, usually with this type of aggression, not being able to control ourselves as best we would otherwise. So it's someone's called you a name, and instead of controlling yourself, you are reacting from that high arousal and intense situation and that those emotions that you're feeling, like anger, vengeful hostility, things like that. So this is a hot-blooded, reactive type of aggression that you're just really mad and you're reacting out of anger, and so you're aggressive towards that person because of what they just did or said to you. Now, in contrast, we have proactive aggression. This is, in contrast again, cold-blooded, and we're not reacting to someone, but instead we are planning things out. We're using it usually for a particular means. So driven by expectations of rewards, we're calculated. I'm going to use aggression to get what I want out of the situation. Some other examples are like bullying, domination, teasing, name calling. You're using it perhaps to get something else. So I'm going to tease you or call you names and use that type of aggression to do that because I want to gain a higher social status or something like that. So it's less emotional and usually not provoked. It's not in response to something else. It's you might be the one instigating for a particular means by the reward you believe you may get. Okay, next we have overt and covert. That is different in behavioral patterns, emotions, cognitions, and development. So overt basically can be hidden. So that's covert. Sorry. Long day already. I'm sure you're having the same. Hopefully not. Okay, so overt is in your face, openly lashing out against whoever the target might be. So physical fighting, harm, threats to your face. So it's out in the open. In contrast, we have covert, like a secret agent covert. So it's concealing the aggressive behavior for some reason, like to gain an advantage. So if I'm stealing, maybe I'm doing it when you're not looking, and I'm doing this when you're not looking because I have a better chance of getting away with it at that time. I'm burglarizing your house when you're not there because I have more of a chance to get away with it if you're not there and able to call the police. Okay, so overt, direct confrontation with victims. Contrast, covert is concealment, sneaky, since that's spy kind of example. Emotions, overt is usually that reacting, so anger and high arousal. Covert is less emotion, not really playing as much of a role here, if any at all. Cognition, so that's our thinking. We're not able to really think it through with the overt. Oftentimes we're reacting when otherwise we should have counted to 10, thought of some better solutions, things like that. So overt is less thinking, less social cognition. And with covert, you do have a lot of that cognitive thinking going on because you've got to plan out a way to use it and be sneaky. Development, so talking about age, oftentimes. So with overt, it's usually early because we haven't learned that that's not an acceptable behavior. So beginning early, and it's especially true in boys that they're using overt. Covert can start early, well, a little bit later than overt, but it's developed slowly and generally evolves as we learn to escape punishment. All right, so I talked a little bit about gender differences so far, but interestingly, males and females are equally physically aggressive when we're toddlers. So our gender differences aren't coming in our very early years. Why might that be? Well, we have a similar basically biological basis, but perhaps we are socialized different, and that girls are especially told not to be physically aggressive, where boys are not necessarily encouraged, but not discouraged as much. Perhaps maybe encouraged. So with boys, again, more overtly aggressive, starting in our early elementary years, and more physically aggressive. Girls, on the other hand, were more covertly aggressive and relationally aggressive. Also, something that you might not have thought is that aggression, in terms of the amount, is similar across our genders. It's the type of aggression that's going to differ. So we have similar amounts. It's not that girls are less aggressive than boys, it's that girls are using different types of aggression than boys. So I gave you that gender explanation. We've got some cultural and socialization going on that promotes and punishes different types of aggression across the genders. I don't know why my pictures show up later. Okay. I think this is a little strange to be in the chapter, but here we are going to talk about road rage versus aggressive driving. So with road rage, we have an angry motorist intentionally attempts to hurt another or drives car into property. The key here is that it's in response to a traffic dispute or grievance. So you can only have road rage if it's in response to something on the road. Okay, so in response to traffic disputes or grievances. Again, it's all about your perception. So the driver may feel that they were actually provoked, but it could be that they imagined it or perceived it incorrectly. But all that matters is that they feel that they have been wronged or provoked or there's a grievance. So here's some examples of two people that are clearly in some kind of argument with each other. Again, here, someone actually yelling at the other person. So we have some kind of confrontation across the two. Okay, how is this different than aggressive driving? Aggressive driving is basically the motorist, the driver, being impatient and or frustrated. So maybe you're running late and so you are weaving in and out of cars or tailgating the person in front of you because you are anxious to get to work. You're impatient because if you get there late, you'll get docked pay or cited or fired, something like that. So it's not necessarily the result of the driver in front of you or the driver beside you. It is because you are feeling impatient or frustrated. It's usually less serious than road rage because you're not necessarily taking it out on a particular person where perhaps more violence would become involved. But of course, aggressive driving can still lead to accidents and horribly fatalities. So it's still important. And this is what we would likely call displaced aggression. And we are going to look at displaced aggression when we get to our theories of aggression. So who's most likely to be a road rager? Research shows it's young males, 18 to 35, so some of our college students would be within this age range. They usually have criminal and violent histories. They might have psychiatric problems, and we'll talk more about psychiatric problems when we get to chapter 8, and drug and alcohol problems.